Hey there, it's Walt. One of my very favorite books is called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And Keller's thesis is that Pareto, the Pareto Principle, was too generous. The Pareto Principle, of course, is the 80-20 rule. Pareto postulated that 20% of our efforts yield 80% of our outcomes. And actually, if you look around at your own life, at your own business, it's largely true. 20% of our clients yield 80% of our incomes, 20% of our efforts yield 80% of our outcomes, 20% of our clients yield 80% of the headaches. Pareto had something going on there, but Keller suggests that he was perhaps too liberal, too generous, that perhaps it's not the 20% that yields the 80%, but perhaps the 10% that yields the 90%, or even 5% that yields the 95%, or, as Keller suggests, maybe it's just one thing. And Keller has a great question that he uses in the book. What is the one thing that you could do right now that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? What is the one thing that you could do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And it's a great question. It's a great question to ask at a meta level as you look at the entirety of a quarter or a calendar year. It's a great question for looking at what would really move the dial in a big way. And it's also a great question to ask at a more microscopic level, at a day-to-day or week-to-week level, or even a moment-to-moment level. What's the one thing that I could focus on right now that would make the big difference? Now, here's what's interesting about that question, and I keep on coming face to face with this from time to time, particularly when life gets a little bit crazy. Because when I ask that question, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I need to focus on right now? What's the one thing? Sometimes I come up with the answer, it's no thing. It's nothing. The answer is that I've got so much going on that I really need to stop. I need to step back. I need to reflect. I need some time for meditation. I need some time for some journaling. That the one thing, the thing that is most important, the thing that's would be most productive, the thing that would most change up the equation is not to do another thing, but actually to step back and to do no thing. And that's hard for those of us who are achievement junkies, who are goal-oriented, who get stuff done because we're doers, we produce. And yet the great paradox is that often in the stopping, often in the stepping back, we get more grounded, we get more resourceful, we get more creative. And in that stopping, then we're able to go back out into the world and serve at an even deeper level. And so I invite you to think about that question. What's the one thing? What's the one thing that you could do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And be aware that sometimes the answer to that question may be to do no thing. Make it a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. Talk soon.